legendary Italian director Bruno Mattei and Claudio Fragasso bring us 7 magnificent gladiators. This, of course, another retelling of the somewhat legendary now 7 samurai mythos. This one stars Lou Ferrigno, Sybil Danning and Brad Harris. Now this was made back to back with Ferrigno's Hercules movie, hence why we have a lot of the same cast here. Now this is a sword and sandal version of that same story. In case you are unfamiliar, we have a village which is being pillaged by a roaming warlord in the most campy costume we've ever seen this side of the Rocky Horror Show. And they go to Rome in hopes of finding a champion who will defend their village, one who can wield this magical sword which burns anyone not worthy to the touch. And they find, of course, Lou Ferrigno, who is a gladiator who shows mercy to an opponent, and he, along with his opponent in that very match, along with 5 other people, decide that they are going to defend this village from the kind of the evil bad guys. So we've got Sybil Danning as kind of one of the warrior women, who one of the 7, along with Brad Harris, who is a rival gladiator. Essentially, it's the same kind of story. Obviously, this village is initially kind of a little bit hesitant of these 7 strangers, but obviously accepts their help, and these bad guys don't know what's coming towards them. So let's talk about what works. Now, there seems to be a whole bunch of these 7 samurai-style movies that came out. Obviously, the most famously, the Magnificent 7, which was the Western version. Sybil Danning actually did another version of the same story in Battle Beyond the Stars, which was the sci-fi version, and this is your kind of fantasy movie, equivalent of it. Certainly, probably the least well known, I would say, out of all these kind of style movies, at least that I would personally say. Let's talk about, first of all, what works with this particular version of the 7 Samurai remake craze that happened in back then. So one thing I think is notable, because this is an Italian film, obviously filmed in Italy, it does benefit from having some great kind of location shooting with kind of ruins and, wide vistas and stuff like that, which does give it a kind of like a somewhat kind of epic movie feel in certain sort of shots and things like that. I think the latter half really benefits from that. The first half kind of being more kind of in quote unquote Rome. But there's definitely some really nice location shooting here that really does add to that kind of that old school kind of classic adventure movie kind of style thing that you had going on there. I like Sybil Danning in this movie. Out of all the gladiators, she is the most one that gets probably the most characterization, ironically, because she's out of all of them probably the most unwilling, and really only goes because her friends are going. So it gives her a little bit more depth than everyone else, who just kind of seems to go along without any question, really. And even in one scene, she's the only one that kind of hesitates about kind of going back. So she's actually quite good. She's, she doesn't have a hell of a lot to do, to be honest with you. No one really does in this film, but nonetheless, I think I do enjoy seeing Sybil Danning kicking a bit of ass in any movie. To be fair, she's always effortlessly watchable here. It's quite a family-orientated movie. It's certainly not a particularly gratuitous movie outside of one kind of female wrestling scene, which is a little bit kind of risque. But other than that, it's kind of more of a PG movie in many ways, to be honest with you. Not particularly kind of violent. If you like things like Jason and the Argonauts, it hasn't got monsters or anything like that in it, but it kind of gives you that same sort of vibe, more of a kind of a matinee style kind of adventure film, and it does kind of remind me of those films in a lot of ways. But to be honest with you, this is certainly one of the weaker sword and sorcery kind of movies, or sword and sandal more accurately, I suppose. No one really has much in the way of characterization. Lou Ferrigno, not the best actor ever. He does look in great shape here, and he does look quite badass with a beard, same as he was sporting in Hercules, I will say that. And he looks in probably the best shape I've ever seen him in this particular film. But he's not a particularly good actor. Let's just call a spade a spade. And add to that, he doesn't really have anything to do. His character is just the kind of the cookie cutter generic good guy, and he's just like the hero because he's the predestined one and all of this. But he doesn't actually you know, have any character outside of that. Pretty much all of the 7 are virtually without character. They're just kind of like, you know, these are the good guys because they are. We don't really know anything about them. We see, some of them are definitely red shirts. They kind of just go, oh, these 2 guys will come along and say, like, well, you're going to die because we have literally nothing about you. I don't even know your name. You know, so there is definitely a case of a 2-tier system where you've got Sybil Danning, Brad Harris, and Ferrigno as the kind of the more the A-listers, and the rest of them kind of the B-listers who are, you know, are definitely going to bite the bullet. The action isn't particularly well handled. I mean, to be fair, this is, like I say, it's an older movie, 1983, so give it some kind of leeway in regards to some of the kind of the cinematography, in regards to the action sequences and choreography and stuff like that. But nonetheless, it's kind of like a little kind of on the silly side, with people clearly kind of like pulling their punches and things like that, and the action being not all that exciting. As I said, the bad guy is it looks like he's coming out from a different film. Looks like he should be, as I say, in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, to be brutally honest with you. The music isn't particularly strong in this one. I think it's just a little bit too kind of chirpy and stuff like that. I guess it goes in with that kind of that matinee sort of style movie, to be honest. But this is a pretty forgettable kind of sword and sandal movie, if I'm being honest with you. I think there's better Italian ones than this. I think probably even the Hercules movie, which was, as I say, made back to back with this one, is probably a better film, if we're being completely honest. This one just feels like, you know, knocked out pretty quick, and not a lot of kind of thought has gone into it. Outside of, say, a couple of like decent looking kind of sequences, because of the kind of the you know, the location shooting, and there's a relatively large cast of extras and stuff, so we do have a little bit of scale. So it's kind of, there are some aspects to enjoy here, but there are a hell of a lot of better sword and sandal movies, and this is probably the weakest out of the 7 samurai style films that sort of came out, and to be honest with you, is still coming out to this day. Overall, I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 10. It's fairly weak. Watch only if you're a huge Sybil Danning fan or a Ferrigno fan, I guess. But outside of that, there's not a hell of a lot to really recommend this one. 3 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.